What's up YouTube, how's it going? It's Stuart Angus from McCowan here, and today we are doing a SKAVEN review and tier list. But before I get into it, let me just say, I'm doing most of my videos on Onwards at the moment, right? And those of you subscribed seen I've done a Gits and Cities of Sigmar review. We're going to have 2 other videos going out today and tomorrow, and we've had a GHB review go out on Sunday, so there's heaps of videos going up that I'm a part of on the Onwards Patreon, so if you're interested in that, check the description below. But today I'm doing this one for YouTube. This is the format that I do over Onwards. But basically, I'm going to go through the battle traits, and then we're going to do a bit of a tier list on the units in the early stage. So what you're going to see on the screen is the tier list, and I'll go through the battle traits, and I will have the points off to the side, and I'll let you know. You'll see me alt tab a lot, right? But you'll see what the situation is. Every time I describe a unit, I will just say what points it is, and we can kind of like analyze it from there. Now, as many of you know, I am a SKAVEN aficionado. I played SKAVEN at Worlds. I've pretty much been playing SKAVEN for a year now as my main army. And so I'm very interested to know how they perform in the new edition. Now, I've lost an absolute shitload of units. So, you know, your Censer Bearers, Plague Priest, the Giant Rats, the Pack Masters, the Rat Swarms, the Gutter Runners, the 3 Underworlds Warbands, and so on. There's probably more that I've missed. We've lost a lot, right? So this is actually quite a small book now, and it used to be one of the largest. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to go. Now, we do know that there's going to be an upcoming release of models and probably a battle tome, and so I'm sure that this will change. But for now, it's good to know the direction they're going in and analyze what we have for the minute. So, we'll get into it. We're going to start off with battle traits. These, of course, were previewed in the Warhammer community article. But basically, you can deploy a unit off the board, like Soulblight used to do. And you can basically come out of a Gnawhole, wholly within 6 and more than 9. So that's interesting, right? Units can start off the board in general now, whereas before you used to have to take a Warp Grinder to do it, which I think is also doesn't exist anymore. So that's that. Basically, you have 3 Gnawholes, but if you have less than 3 at the start of the battle round, you can set up another one, which is awesome. Basically means your Gnawholes are never going to be completely shot off the board, which is great, which would be a concern normally. And then we don't take damage when we retreat, if we retreat with infantry and cavalry. And we have this once per turn ability where we can pick a friendly non-monster SKAVEN unit. So if you are a monster, it's a bit of a negative that we can't use this ability. And as we'll see later, it's also a negative for the Gnawhole, okay? And basically you can normal move in your opponent's turn in the enemy hero phase. Now, you can, because it's in the hero phase, you could then redeploy in the boomer phase afterwards. So, potential to like go in, blow something up in combat, you know, move some distance away, and then move another D6 away. So with Stormfiends, you can go in, slap something, move 6, and then move some number of inches again. So that's the situation there. Okay, now as part of the battle traits, I'm just going to zoom through the battle formations and then the artifacts and that, and then we'll go to the Gnawholes, okay? So, the battle formations. These are interesting. So, the first one we have is the Scryer one, which I think you're probably going to see the most of. And this is basically, in your shooting phase, you pick 3 Scryer units. On a 1, they take D3 mortal wounds. On a 2 to 5, they get +1 to wound from shooting, which is great. And then on the 6, they get +1 rend as well. So, that's pretty good as just a buff. Probably not as good as the +1 damage we used to have, but still pretty nice. We have the Fleshmeld Menagerie. Once per turn in your hero phase, which I'd say is slightly unfortunate timing, right? Because a lot of things we're going to deploy in the Gnawhole or off the board. And so this can be slightly unfortunate. So we pick 3 friendly non-hero moulder units, and they get either, well, on a 1 or 2 they take D3 mortal wounds. On a 3 to 4 they get +1 attacks. And a 5 to 6 they get +1 attacks and a 5-up ward. So if you roll that 5 up on a big unit of Stormfiends, that's massive. But taking D3 mortal wounds on a 1 or 2 is pretty bad. So there's definitely a drawback there. Virulent Procession. Now, this ability is copy and pasted in like 5 battle tomes or 5 faction packs. Gits have it. I think Soulblight has it. And a few other armies have it, I'm pretty sure. But basically, at the end of the turn, you pick 3 Pestilence units and pile in and then do mortals. Which is fine. It's better on units that are a bit more durable. The Pestilence stuff is not that durable, so it's okay. And then Clawlord, you pick 3 friendly Verminous unit that charged, and they get +1 rend for the rest of the turn, which is actually really good, to be fair. So, that's the battle formations. Excuse me. Okay, then heroic traits. Any combat phase. So this will be before any fights happen, I'm pretty sure. On a 3-up, you can retreat. Okay. Which is nice. Particularly on a Verminlord, you can imagine that's quite nice to get him out of trouble. It's quite a good combination with the deceiver. I'll talk about it in a second. And then we have short-tempered, which is +1 to run and charge for friendly SKAVEN units, Hollywood and 13 of this unit. Which is nice. There's some combos here with like the Master Moulder getting stuff +3 to charge, which could be massive. And then skilled manipulator, basically you have a 4-up bodyguard is what it used to be. But only onto infantry. Which is probably not that great, because a lot of the heroes have a 5-up board anyway. Then we have artifacts, so at the end of any turn, Foulhide lets you heal D3. That's pretty good on a monster hero, you'd imagine. Warpstone Charm, pick an enemy unit in combat on a 3-up, they get -1 save. Pretty good. And then the SKAVEN Brewers, pick a friendly infantry unit, Hollywood in 13. And you do death through mortal wounds to them, but they get +1 attack. So this used to be just within 3, so I would consider that a pretty sizable buff to SKAVEN Brew in terms of the range. Maybe not on a big unit of Clanrats, but certainly on a smaller unit, that's a big buff. I think all of these artifacts have play, so that's more than some of the other faction packs. So I'd say out of the heroic traits and artifacts, you basically have 5 out of 6 things that are really good, so that's nice. And then spell laws. Okay, we have a D3 mortal wound spell with 13-inch range. Fine. Not very good. Skid Elite, you can teleport a hero. Thanqoul can actually teleport now, which is kind of spicy. You remove the target from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield more than 9. So it's a teleport. It obviously can't move afterwards because of the core rules. And we have an 18-inch range strike last spell, which is great. That's super useful. So spell laws, I mean, Wither sucks, but the other two are pretty useful, I'd say. But there's not anything like in the way of buffs to our own units here. It's just you know, 1 utility spell, 1 damage spell, and 1 like debuff utility spell. So yeah. Then we have the prayer law, which is insanely strong, but there's a reason it's insanely strong, and that's because the cheapest priest we have is like 360 points, okay? Or 340 points for the furnace. So it's only the furnace and the corruptor which are priests now. So these prayer laws are amazing, but you have to take one of those to gain access to it. So that's a bit of a problem. So first one, basically you give +1 to wound on a 4-up to a infantry unit, and on an 8-up they get crit mortal, which is like, again, that's insane. Yeah, like imagine a big unit of Clanrats with crit mortal, or big unit of even plague monks with crit mortals. Pretty nice, right? They got a lot of attacks, so especially with SKAVEN Brew, so that could be massive. It's a little bit, I guess, unreliable to get an 8, because if you successfully cast the prayer, I believe you have to do it. You can't just store the ritual points, so it's a bit unreliable, but maybe doable. Bile Torrent, basically it's a 5-up horde clear, and on an 8 it's a 4-up horde clear. Pretty nice, right? That's, especially since you don't have to like take it anymore, right? It used to be you had to commit to taking this, but because this is not going to be useful against every army, but you know, you play like 40 zombies or 40 stabbers or whatever, or even 40 Clanrats, this is going to be massively useful. We have Rabid Tough. Give an infantry unit -1 to wound, and if the chanting roll was an 8, give them +1 save. You can imagine on Stormfiends giving them -1 to wound, and then also giving them maybe a 5-up ward from the moulder thing could be potentially a pretty tough unit to dislodge. So that's the prayer law. I think pretty sexy, but again, there's no like small plague priest, so you're gonna have to take a big guy to get this. Okay, and then the manifestation lore. So there's a vortex, which is 18-inch range. It's like an extra 7. So it's basically 25-inch range. It's pretty long. Vermintide is a 7, 13-inch range, and same with the bell. And they both need to be more than 9. Okay, I'll just go quickly find them because they're down the bottom. And then we'll go do the Gnawholes. So if it's going to load. The Bell of Doom is really good, by the way. The Vortex, I'm not so sure about, but we'll see what happens. It's like extremely awkward to set up for sure. Okay, give my computer a sec to load this. Alright, here we are. So, yeah, as I said, the Bell of Doom is pretty nice. So, basically, it gives you -1 wound. Or gives your enemy -1 to wound against infantry. That's wholly within 13 of it, which is pretty nice. Now, there's a bit of overlap with the prayer there. But, yeah, that's obviously super good. You're going to cast this a lot, I think. The melee weapon doesn't really do anything, but yeah, you're mainly just doing this for this Toll of Doom thing, which is super nice. Then we have the Vermintide, which I guess is designed to be a slightly annoying thing you just keep around, but it's not that great, to be honest. I mean, you heal D6. Yeah. And it's kind of okay. It was sort of in combat. Not really, actually. Yeah, that one kind of sucks. And the Warp Lightning Vortex. So, it doesn't do mortal wounds when it's set up, which is a bit weird. But it only affects enemy units now in all its abilities. So, it also can be kind of a defensive thing. But it's quite easy to kill. And when you set it up, if you set it up in combat, your opponent's going to get to hit it, right? So, it's awkward to find where to set up. So, I think basically the way you want to set it up is sort of in front of your opponent, and to give them the -2 run and charge if they don't banish it. And then if they pass across it, they take the extra mortal wounds as well. So, yeah. The only issue is it's quite like squishy. It's 7 wounds with a 6-up save with a 6-up ward, and if they kill it, the whole thing's removed. So all 3 of them are removed. So, I think that one's pretty average. But so overall, I'd say the Bell of Doom is amazing, and then the other ones are kind of mid. You probably just cast the Bell of Doom every turn, and that's enough to justify taking the manifestation lore, I think. So, without further ado, let's talk about the star of the show, which is the Gnawholes. And yeah, this is really good. So, okay, models can pass through it, but if enemies do, they take D3 mortal wounds and a 2-up kind of thing, which is pretty good. Your movement phase, you can pick a friendly SKAVEN unit that's not in combat and wholly within 6 of this terrain feature to be the target, and you remove them and set them up wholly within 6 of more than 9. I'm assuming you can still use this for every Gnawhole, because it's a different model, right? So, that means you still can do your 3 teleports. And then the other thing you have now is, once per turn, at the end of your turn, you can spend a command point, and then get a replacement unit, as long as it's a non-hero SKAVEN infantry unit, which covers a lot, but there are some things that are not covered by this. But you get half the models back, and it's wholly within 6 of the Gnawholes, and only 3 from all enemy units, which is kind of spicy, right? It makes it really hard to zone out getting models back from the Gnawhole. Like, it's not more than 9, so you're going to be able to do this pretty reliably, but it does cost a command point. So, because of this, any ability that gives some way to avoid doing all that attack is probably quite good, because we don't want to do all attack. We want to save our CP for this. So, that's something to consider. And, yeah, I mean, we can see this Gnawhole ability is insanely strong. And I think even just getting 10 Clanrats back, or if you have a reinforced unit, 20 Clanrats back is pretty massive, right? You can put this near some objectives, and you're always going to have some possibility to get it back in the late game. Okay, so that's the battle traits. And now we're going to go through the units and do our little bit of a tier list here. So, I'm going to start with Thanqoul, who's quite weird, to be honest. So Warfire projectors have changed when this loads. So they're not like the Horde Clear thing anymore. It's just 6 attacks, 2s and 3s, Ren 2, 1 damage with 10-inch range, which is fine. It's sort of okay. His combat's pretty average. I mean, the warbringer hit on 4s, so yeah. And then the Staff of the Horn Rat doesn't do that much. He can heal D3 at the end of any turn, which is pretty nice. Makes him a lot more durable. He's a 2-caster. He has +1 to cast. He has this once per turn monstrous rampage where you pick an enemy unit in combat and you roll a dice. On a 3 to 5 you do D3 mortal wounds. On a 6 you do 2D3 mortal wounds. So kind of like a stomp thing, but sometimes you do more. And he has quite a nice spell, which is Terrible Madness, where you pick an enemy unit within 13 and you do a 6-up horde clear, and also they can't use commands until the start of your next turn. But the points is an issue. It's 360 points for Thanqoul. What's quite nice about him is you can take any SKAVEN in his regiment, so there's some flexibility there. 360 points. It's a good spell, double caster, +1 to cast. It's definitely not bad, but it's definitely not that sexy, is it? The combat's fine. It's just sort of fine at everything, and has some flexibility in the list building. So you might take him sometimes, but I'm not really seeing the instant appeal from Thanqoul now. Probably go like B tier. It's a fine war scroll, right? But not particularly amazing for the army, I think. Okay, then we have Vermin King, who is 430 points, which is a lot. 13 wounds with a 4-up save. So on the squishier side, for sure, with a 5-up ward. It's only a 1... I just want to check with Thanqoul. Thanqoul is a War Master, okay, so he'd have to be a general. Yeah. Only 10-inch move now as well, so lost 2-inch move, but at least his move doesn't bracket. He also doesn't bracket at all in terms of damage. And his damage is 7 attacks, 3s and 2s, Ren 2, damage 3 with exploding 6s, which is pretty good, actually. His spell is slightly nerfed from what it was. It used to be 13 dice on a 4-up, and you could make a new unit. Instead, you just return slain models. So that's nerfed. And then he has like a raw thing where you also subtract from the target's control score, which is fine. It only works on infantry. Then, in your hero phase, you pick one of the following effects. You add 1 to cast some Master Clan Wizards, which would include himself. Now, he has all the keywords, which is pretty nice, right? And again, you can include any SKAVEN in his regiment, so that's pretty good in terms of flexibility. I believe for all of the Master Clan stuff, you can include all SKAVEN units in their regiment. Now, what is a feature about certain units is that some of the battalions are limited in terms of the number of Clanrats you can take, but there are some units where it's not. So I might actually just pull this up on the screen, because this actually has quite a big influence on list building, right? So they want you to not take so many Clanrats, so you'll see that there's kind of a limitation on the Clanrats you can bring in some of these, but there are several heroes where that's not the case, okay? And these are basically the Master Clan ones. So your Gracier on foot, your Gracier and Screaming Bell, Vermin King, and Thanqoul and Warpseer, you can bring any number of Clanrats inside their regiment, okay? So if they're the general, you could bring 4 units of Clanrats in here. So if you want to do a Clanrat spam build, you're probably going to have to include one of the Master Clan units. If I was being cynical, you just do the Gracier on foot, but maybe if there's some utility here, you would consider putting one of these big heroes in here. Just something to note there, right? I think also with the warbringer, because it says any verminous, you could also bring any number of Clanrats in that one as well. And the same with both versions of the Clawlord. So it's the Clanrats are just kind of limited if you just run like any of the other allegiance. So, you know, they're trying to limit you from running heaps of Clanrats if you run Scryer kind of thing, right? Okay, so the 13-headed one, you get +1 to cast for friendly Master Clan wizards wholly within 13 of the unit, which is fine, but probably if you're running this big points investment, you're probably not going to have another one, so it's probably +1 to cast for himself. Maybe a Foot Gracier's in there. +1 to charge for Verminous units, which is fine, but you'd hope a better buff there. +1 to hit for Scryer units, which is fine, but there's heaps of ways to get that. +1 to rain for Eshin units, which all do mortals, so that's a bit pointless. +1 to chant for friendly Pestilence priests, which is nice, but again, the priest costs like 340 points, so what's the probability you're going to have them in there? And you heal D3 to each moulder unit, which is okay, but the only one that has multiple wounds, I guess, is himself. Well, I mean, the Stormfiends in that have multiple wounds, but it's only heal D3, right? So I think this guy's pretty bad. It's probably the weakest Verminlord, in my opinion, so I'd probably put him in C tier. So if I can just find him for a second. I think, unfortunately, Screech is having another edition where his War Scroll is not the best. I'd probably put it down here. Okay, Verminlord Deceiver. Now, this is an annoying-ass unit, okay? We're going to talk about why. But, basically, his shooting's quite good. Like, so 6 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 1, damage 2, with crit auto wound. And the combat's pretty nice. 8 attacks, 3s and 2s, Ren 3, damage 2, with crit mortals. So his damage 2 is not great, but pretty good opportunity to assassinate a hero. And check out this Burst in the Shadows ability, right? This is insane. If this unit's in combat, so this is before your opponent will get to hit you, right? On a 4-up, you pick a point on the battlefield within 13, and within 1 of any enemy units. You remove it from the battlefield and set it up within 1 of that point. Just within. It's all within. So that's, like, insane, right? And then you can also take the command trait, which allows this guy to flee on a 3-up, and suddenly you have one of the most annoying units to dislodge in the game. Now, he can be shot now, right? So that makes it a bit easier for him to deal with, but in terms of an annoying unit that just runs around, he comes in at 410 points, which is expensive, but it kind of gives your opponent a real big problem to deal with. I quite like it. The only issue is that in his battalion is just Clanrats and 1 unit of Clanrats and Eshin, which, as we'll see, I think Eshin is just 1 unit. It's just the Night Runners, I believe, which are pretty horrible. So for me, that kind of puts him down to B, but there's some cool stuff here, right? I like in principle the few things you can do with them. Okay, the Corruptor. So this is a priest, and as we said, that the law's great. The combat's decent, so 8 attacks, 3s and 2s, Ren 2, damage 2 with crit auto wound, so pretty nice. He has basically the old Great Plagues thing as a passive, so if he rolls an unmodified 6, which is hard, okay, you can do give something D3 mortals every time it moves, which is pretty nice. For the rest of the battle, you can reroll chance, pretty nice, or pick an enemy unit within 13, they take 2d3 mortal wounds, which is nice. And then I really like this monstrous rampage, so in any combat phase, you pick up to 3 enemy units in combat, and you roll a d3 for each target, and on a 2+, you inflict amount of mortal damage with a target equal to the roll, and give this unit 1 ritual point. So I'm thinking with the Corruptor, what we do is give him the 3-up retreat command trait, and we go in, and we do this, and then we get out of combat, right? I think that's the sort of use for this. And on your opponent's turn, they're going to come in, right? And you can do this Plaguemaster thing, and then roll a 3-up and try to get out of combat, right? So I think, given it gives you a ritual point, right? You could go in and do like 5 mortal wounds and get 5 ritual points, right? And then be on your turn able to do one of those super boosted prayers. You know, give something. You do the 4-up horde clear. What else was there? +1 like crit mortals on a unit or something, right? So this unit I think is super nice. It's actually also quite cheap, so it's 360. Now unfortunately it's Pestilence that goes in its battalion, and I don't think that they're the best, but you can still take 1 unit of Clanrats with him. So I am a fan of the Corruptor. I think this is an A tier unit. There's a lot of stuff we can do now with this in terms of, you know, you can go in, get the ritual points, and then do a prayer on your opponent's turn. And the -1 to chance not going to matter that much when you have that many ritual points on you, right? So, that's, yeah, it's a pretty good unit, I think. I'm excited because this unit sucked for ages, so it's glad to see it get some use in this faction pack. Okay, the Warbringer. So the combat is pretty tasty, to be honest. There's 7 attacks, 3s and 2s, ran 2, damage 3 with crit mortals. That could hurt a lot. Like, that can do some serious damage. He has this once per turn ability at the end of, just in any combat phase, so before you hit, where you can use all-out attack or all-out defense with 2 Verminous infantry units wholly within 13. So it has some good synergy for Clanrats there, right? You can double all-out defense Clanrats. The only issue, I think, is that it would still cost you a command point to do both. So that's a little bit limited in its application, I would say. Then once per turn, at the end of any turn, you pick a damaged enemy unit in combat. You roll a dice. If the roll is less than the number of damage points the target has, you inflict a number of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. So that means you go in, you do like 6 damage, and then you can just do that many mortal wounds, basically. But if you're against one model, like 1 wound models or something, that's not going to do anything, basically. You can't even do it because they're not damaged. And the Warbringer is 360 points, which is kind of on the cheaper side. Are you going to take this unit, though? I don't think so. It's nice to have a damaged monster, but I'm not really seeing the use otherwise. I mean, again, we can take the 3-up retreat thing. So a lot of these monster heroes are you kind of think about that bolted on. It's interesting. He does less damage than he used to, kind of, but it's a bit more reliable. So before he used to reroll wounds, though. I'm not sure. I'm not going to put it higher than B, so I probably put it the same point as the Deceiver. I can see some play, but it's just, for me, I'm not so sure a damaged monster is necessarily what we want in this army, but I could be wrong. So I'll just put it there for now, but maybe it's better than I think. Okay, the warpseer. So basically, you can move an extra 2 inches when you do the whole move in your opponent's turn thing, which is not bad. Its combat is pretty awful. So 6 attacks, 4s and 2s, ren 2, damage 3. So there's no crit auto wound or crit mortals, and you're hitting a bit less than the other ones, so quite a bit worse in combat. This unit's 340 points. Okay, we have once per battle. Basically, you can pick an enemy unit in combat, and on a 2-up do that many mortal wounds, but you can't use the extra 2-inch move thing, which is okay. He has, on a 4-up, your opponent will get strikes last, which is really nice, to be fair. Like, that's actually really good. Playing that at this edition, that's a super important ability. You can sit it behind, a hammer unit, and because it moves fast, you can keep up with them, and then your opponent's going to have to think twice about charging in. And it has a quite nice spell with 18-inch range, where you reduce the number of dice rolled when making charge rolls for a unit to a minimum of 1, which, with the whole move in your opponent's turn and redeploy as well, could make it so that it's difficult for your opponent to actually do anything. And he's also a 2-cast wizard, so better in terms of that than the other ones. So, the combat's not great, but as I said, I don't think we need a combat monster. We want utility, and we want something that we can bring Clanrats with. And this unit can also bring any SKAVEN unit with it as well. It's just Master Clan, so you can bring, pretty much anything you want in the battalion with him. And the abilities are all great, and that's 340 points, which is probably on the cheaper side for what it does. So, I love the warpseer. I think that this is probably up there with the corruptor. I really like this one. Pretty good, again, to put the retreat command trait on. I think a lot of these monsters, right, you just kind of have to take it to keep them safe. Otherwise, it's just too expensive to play versus combat armies, I think. Yeah, but looks pretty nice. Okay, the Gracier. It's only a 1-cast wizard now, and it just has this token's ability to do 3 dice, which is better now because primal dice are gone. And this can be super nice in your opponent's turn because... oh, no, you can't. It's in your hero phase. I was going to say it'd be nice to do when you spend a command point to do a spell on your opponent's turn, but you can't do that, can you? So 1-cast wizard, it's the same points that it was. And the protection is a lot worse. I don't like it. I think it sucks. Yeah, no, I don't like it at all. I'm gonna be bold here. So I didn't like it when it was a 2-caster, and actually the same points as this. So I don't want to take it. I think we go C though. It's still not completely useless, but probably put it there. Okay, Arch-warlock. So we have a Scryer hero here, so you can only take Scryer and 1 unit of Clanrats in his battalion. Kind of decent shooting, but only 10-inch range and whatever combat. And each time a friendly Scryer unit, wholly within 13, uses the covering fire command, you don't subtract 1 from the hit rolls. Which is pretty nice, but this is an aggressively pointed unit. It's 170 points. And it's a 1-cast wizard. I'm not so sure, personally. When would you take this? If you're going an all Scryer build and you want a wizard, but the thing is that the spells are not... They're not good for that sort of army, right? Like, okay, having an Unbind is nice, but teleporting a hero or making something strikes last or doing D3 mortal wounds in a shooting army is just not that relevant. So I'm personally not so sure about what this would be for. I'm inclined to go D on this one. I think it's quite bad for 170 points. If it was like 50 points cheaper, then maybe. Okay, on the other hand, so this warlock engineer is 150 points. Now this is not a wizard, but it's a shooting hero, which is great because it gives you some reward for spending heaps of points on a hero, right? Now his ranged weapon is basically it's basically 3 damage. It's basically 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 2, damage 3, and if you roll a 6 as auto wound, pretty nice, right? That's pretty tasty. And once per turn in your shooting phase, you pick a visible enemy hero to be the target, and for the rest of the turn, this unit and friendly warp block Gnawholes can ignore the guarded hero ability. Now you still get -1 to hit, that's been fact, but you will be able to shoot enemy support heroes. Okay. So you can shoot enemy support heroes with your Gnawholes. And it's 150 points, and he shoots pretty well as well. Okay. This is an insane unit. Where is it, though? Oh, I mean, this is the old model. But yeah, I think this is one of the best war scrolls in the army, right? It's a hero that shoots, and it has a good shooting weapon. And it has the capacity to let you just shoot support heroes with your Gnawholes. So I think pretty amazing for its points, right? Okay, the bombardier, on the other hand, is a little bit strange. So it doesn't have any synergy, and it's cheap though. It's 130. So it's basically can easily give itself D3 plus 3 damage with the Doom Rocket, which is 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, Ren 1 damage D6, or would be D3 plus 3, and +1 Ren against infantry. 18-inch range, and you get +1 to hit for shooting attacks that target an enemy unit that has 10 or more models. But the damage, I think if you do the math, I'm pretty sure the damage is still worse than the guy we just looked at from the Doom Rocket, and it's shorter range. The other guy's 24-inch range, which is like exceptional. So I don't see the point personally. I think you'd go C. It's not a terrible war scroll, but considering the other guy, you're not going to take it, I don't think. Okay, Stormfiends. Quite a different unit to what it was. So, 3 models, and they come in at, I believe it's 260 points. Yep. Now, interestingly, these have the infantry, moulder, and scryer keyword. So, they have a laundry list of a bit of a lottery here, okay? So, that's amazing. You can give them, you know, potentially the moulder buffs and the scryer buffs as well. So, massive. So their ranged weapons are, you have the Rattling cannons, which are 3d6 shots, 4s and 3s, Ren 1, damage 1. There's no way to buff that anymore, so quite a bit weaker than it was. The wind launchers are 3 attacks, 4s and 3s, Ren 2, damage D3, which is the same as it was, but it used to be Ren 3 and quite a bit longer range. And the warp fire projectors are 2d6 attacks, 2s and 4s, Ren 2, damage 1 with shooting combat. The combat's pretty nice. You can see it there, but they all hit on 4s, but everything wounds on 2s. So I'm thinking this unit is more of a combat unit now, in my head. You get 18 wounds, 4-up save for 260, which is a bit on the lower side. But the shock gauntlets, you know, they do d6 hits when you hit. So 4 attacks, so maybe like 8 attacks, you probably get 2 6, maybe like 1 or 2 6s in there, so you can get some extra hits. So as a combat unit, I think pretty nice. It's just still quite expensive for what it does, right? There's heaps of synergies, but it is expensive. I'm not so sure personally. I think on paper it probably looks less good than it is. I mean, they come back as well though, right? Yeah, they've got to be A tier for sure. I'm just reluctant to put them S for now. Okay, the Warp Lightning Cannon. So this is 180 points. And no, it does not come back. But this War Scroll is insane. So, it's 20-inch range. And you move 3. So, it's only 23-inch effective range. But 2d6 attacks. Forced to hit. And if you roll a hit, you do 1 mortal wound on the target. And the attack sequence ends. And if you're within the combat range of a Scry hero, you can add 6 to the Warp Lightning blast attacks. But each unmodified hit roll of a 1, you do d3 mortal wounds to yourself, which, okay, might kill you. So you gotta be a bit careful about when you're going to use this. But, I mean, on average, that's basically 6 mortal wounds. Because you're going to get like 7 on 2d6. And then, you know, get 7 on 2d6 and then get +6. But also you can all-out attack because it hits. It has a hit characteristic, right? It's going to be 2d6 +6. And then you can all-out attack. So it could be, you know, like on average 13 attacks. And then could do like 10 mortal wounds. For 180 points. Now you can only do this ability of overcharging once per turn. So maybe you don't take more than 1. I'm not sure. But you're definitely taking 1. If you have any Scryer units, I think. I think it's an insane War Scroll, personally. I'm pretty confident to put this in the S tier. I think that this is a lot of damage for what it does. For 180 points, just doing like 9 mortal wounds is pretty crazy. That can definitely shift the turn of some games. Alright. Now, I think this is my favorite unit. This unit's insane. Like, it's so good. So, it's 5 models, 130 points, and it's an infantry unit, so it can come back, right? Now, it's 10-inch range, so it can come out of the Gnawhole and shoot now. So the oppression is over, because you used to not be able to do that. You used to have 8-inch range, so it meant you couldn't, or 9-inch range. Anyway, you couldn't come out of the Gnawhole and shoot. But now you definitely can. And it's 1 attack, 3s and 3s, Rend 1, damage D3, but you get +1 Rend against infantry, and your +1 damage against an enemy unit that has 10 or more models. It's pretty tasty at killing infantry, right? But what I love about them is they count as a hidden weapon team, so while they're in combat range of a friendly Clanrats unit that has 5 or more models, and there's no other friendly weapon teams that within that unit's combat range, this unit's not visible to enemy units more than 13 away. So that means they're protected against shooting. So this is a shooting unit that has really pretty insane damage for the points, I think. You know, 260 points to do, I think on average it's like 18 damage to a 4-up save infantry unit, which is pretty meaty, right? It's pretty nice. Easy, you can get them to 2s and 2s pretty easy, right? With all-out attack and, you know, adding +1 to wound by the Scryer thing. So, again, I think a pretty insane unit. I would probably put them in S tier, this unit. I think it's going to be the bread and butter to have at least probably one of these in almost every build. Even, like, your Verminus builds, you're probably going to take a unit of 10, I think. Because they can't be shot, right? So they're just... Your opponent doesn't really have an answer to them. They just have to walk in and have to get cover fired, right? And even with cover fire, they're still going to do a lot of damage. Even if you tag them, they can still shoot in combat, right? So I think they're super nice. Okay, the Doomwheel. 140 points. This is a very strange unit. It moves 2d6 +7 with 8 wounds on a 4-up save. And it has some shooting. So D6, 3s and 3s, Rend 1, damage D3. And some combat. 6 attacks, 4s and 3s, no Rend 1 damage. With charge +1 damage. Okay. Now it can move in your opponent's turn. You could move 2d6 +7 in your opponent's turn. And in your movement phase, basically, it can move a distance up to its move characteristic, and you can pass through other models and the combat ranges, but you have to pass over models to do mortal wounds, which is kind of interesting. So it's only 2d6 plus 7 though, so if you roll low, then you might not be able to actually pass over anything. But what's nice about it is you can use it even if you're in combat, right? So you can kind of like, you know, I'm thinking kind of countercharge and then use this and get out, and that's where you do your mortal wounds. Maybe. But it can't come back. It's 8 wounds on a 4-up save. It doesn't really get that many buffs. Like, it can get +1 to wound and shooting, but that's kind of it. I'm not really convinced. It's not D. I think there's maybe some use for it, but it looks a bit strange to me. I mean, the shooting... Let me just think about the shooting. That's actually not bad for 140, to be fair. The D6 is random, but it's not bad for 140, and the combat's not terrible either. And sometimes you're going to need a unit like this to do battle tactics on the side, right? I think we can put it in B. I think it has some play, for sure. Maybe 1. Yeah, in the Scryer list, I think so. Okay, Warplock Jezzails. So this unit is 150 for 3. It's infantry, so it can come back. 24-inch range, which is stellar, and 6-inch move. So a 30-inch effective range. Now, it does get +1 to hit it if it doesn't move, but you have some flexibility there. So 12 of these cost 300. 6 of these cost 300 points, and you'd basically get 12 shots, 4s and 3s, rend 2, damage 2. The thing that I like about them is they're not that squishy. Like, compared to what they used to be, they're not that squishy. I mean, they are objectively squishy, like a 6 wounds for 150 points, but they used to be, I think, like 6 up save and then they get +2 save or something weird like that. And then the bravery was an issue. So they're more like the whole sniper thing, right? Like, you're going to take probably 6 with a Warplock engineer guy and be able to snipe some heroes off potentially. But in terms of killing units, it's probably not enough damage. I'm a little bit skeptical about how good this unit can be as just as your actual damage unit as opposed to just sniping. But in terms of sniping, it's decent. I'd probably put it like here, probably. Probably about the nose. Is it up there with Stormfiends? I don't think so. Like, the only reason that we can put it here is because of this guy. So it's hard to evaluate them in isolation, but the fact that Warlock Engineer has such an insane war scroll probably boosts these guys higher up than they would be otherwise. But they do come back, and you can start off the board with them. Yeah, I think you have to put them like here. They're pretty nice, I think. Okay, Warp Fire Thrower. So it's 90 points. 2d6 attacks, 2s and 4s, rend 2, damage 1. It has the whole weapon team thing. But I don't know. I'm not seeing it, personally. Now, I don't know which one is which. There's going to be a struggle. I think it's this one. I don't really see it. The Rattling gun, 3d6 attacks, 4s and 4s, rend 1, 1 with exploding 6s. And this one is 100 points. No. I think they don't want to sell these anymore. So I just don't know why these didn't go to Legends and then some of the other ones did, right? It's just a bit strange to me. Doomflayer. This one is a little bit better, I think. It can be shot, though, so it's a little bit fragile, but it's 80 points, so it's quite cheap. And it's 2d6 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, but has anti-infantry +1 rend and charge +1 damage, and does some mortal wounds on the charge. So, as a little sideline unit that goes off and kills some stuff on the side, maybe it's okay. But what I'm worried about is there's a lot of cavalry in the game where you're not going to get that +1 rend, and you're probably just going to get murdered. So, I'm less encouraged. I think it's probably down here as well, unfortunately, with all the other weapon teams. Okay, the Plagueclaw catapult. So this is a nice war scroll. It's 150 points. I thought it would be more than that, but it's not. So it's 24-inch range, 2 attacks, 3s and 2s, rend 1, d6 damage, but against infantry it's +1 rend. So less swingy than it used to be. And every time you shoot, so this is in both players' turns. You could cover fire, right, and potentially do this. You roll a dice, and if the results equal or less than the number of models that were slain, that unit has strikes last for the end of the turn. That's pretty nice, I'd say. Again, I thought this would be more expensive because, you know, the Mortec Crawler was 280 points. It has a similar ability. Sure, the output's better, but this is less swingy than it used to be because, you know, you don't have to worry about only one shot. I think pretty nice as far as a catapult goes. I'd probably put it in maybe up here. Would you take it every list? Because you're kind of saying like you would take it if you're taking that thing. I think in a combat list you probably would take one, right? Yeah. I think so. I think it's pretty nice. I mean, being able to do cover fire on your opponent's turn and potentially make something strikes last is pretty good. Otherwise, in your turn, it could be a good offensive tool. Good way to do chip damage. I quite like it for 150. You probably take one, I think. Okay, the furnace. Now, I have a personal attachment to this unit, so let's hope it's good. So this is 340 points. Has those awesome prayers we saw before. So combat's kind of weird. So 4 attacks, 4s and 2s, rend 1 damage 3, but crit auto wound. And then all of its other profiles have crit auto wound, but are less good. And then Crushing Bulk has 6 attacks, 4s and 2s, rend 1 damage 2 now, which is a big buff. You -1 ward within 6. Which is interesting, for sure. And Pestilence units have a 6-up ward. And basically that means Plague Monks have a 6-up ward while they're wholly within 6. Where can I place this? I don't think it's as good as the Corruptor. But at the same time, it's definitely not bad. It's lost a lot of its defensive capabilities. It doesn't have the -1 to hit or wound anymore. It's gone up in points though. And a battalion sucks, really. So, probably B, to be fair. Yeah. Okay. Plague Monks. Oh, now, you're going to bet that I'm going to play a Corruptor and a Furnace with Plague Monks. That's going to be my army for sure. First time I play this. That's just my style, but we have Plague Monks, so this is 20 for, I believe, 140. So they're actually cheaper than Clanrats, which is interesting. 20 for 140 is pretty cheap, you know. They used to be 180 for 20, so... And they come back. So 40 Plague Monks for 280 is pretty cheap. They definitely can die insanely fast, but they do mortal wounds when they die. And the combat, it does suck, but you can buff it in a lot of ways. So you can give them +1 attack from the SKAVEN brew. We talked about the crit thing before. So there's ways to buff it. And I think if you have 40 of them, you can start doing some real damage with this unit. I don't know if there's a way to get rend on them. So you might be a little bit reliant on the mortals thing. But still, for the points, it seems so good though. Like 280 points for 40 Plague Monks. It's really tasty for sure. I mean, if I compare it to Clanrats, what they were before, they do way more damage and have the 6-up do mortals back, but don't have a good save. And they come back from the Gnawholes now. Yeah, I think this is a really solid unit. I think you're going to see some Horde builds that get played now because of this unit. I think I'll probably put it up here. Seems pretty solid to me. Okay, Clawlord. While it's damaged, you get +3 attacks. And it can chain fight. Pretty good for spamming dudes because it's 120 points and you can get Clanrats. But other than that, terrible. I'd probably put it C just because of this army building thing, but the actual war scroll sucks. But sometimes you just take a unit right now just so you can fit more Clanrats. Speaking of which, the stars of the show. I think this unit's insane. We have 20 Clanrats, 5 up save, 2 attacks, 4s and 5s, ren 1 with crit auto wounds. Exactly the same as the Plague Monks in combat. And at the end of any turn, you return D3 slain models. Now, what I'm slightly worried about is the damage in the game is pretty insane at the moment. But if you play against a low damage army, this is going to be such a pain to play against. 160 points, though, is a lot, for sure. And the army build restrictions are real. But the ability to hide those Acolyte globadiers, and there's quite a few ways they can get buffed, and like in a significant way, and the unit comes back. I think, look, the points are expensive, but it's probably the best. It's probably the best unit in the book, if we're honest, right? It's probably the best unit in the book. Yeah, it's very good, Clanrats. Other armies would kill to have this unit, so yeah, I think they're really solid. Stormvermin, on the other hand, are not so good. 3 attacks, 3s and 4s. Ren 1, damage 1, with anti-charge plus 1 rend. And friendly SKAVEN heroes have ward 5 up, but for some reason this unit doesn't. Because in the Cities of Sigmar book, hammers are 10 points more expensive than this, have a 3 up save, do more damage, and also get a 5 up ward themselves. So, what's the hate for? I don't know. I don't really see the use of this unit. I mean, it can be kind of like a weird hammer that gets better if your opponent charges you. Your heroes get 5 up ward, but there's not a heap of like long range magic that's going to kill them now, so I don't know. I'm not sold. I kind of think D for these. I don't. Maybe C. Maybe C. They're not like completely useless, but I'm not really seeing it. Rat ogres seem super solid to me. So one of them has a gun that's kind of okay, and then they basically have 5 attacks, 4s and 3s, ren 1, damage 2, and you can do D3 mortal wounds to them and give them +1 attack. They have a 5 up save, so it's 12 wounds with the 5 up save for 170, but they come back. They can get all sorts of buffs, this unit. They kind of probably have access to the most buffs in the book. They're quite good to bring off the board because the Master Moulder can give them a charge bonus, as we'll see in a second. So, Rat Ogres, I'd probably put in kind of lower A sort of territory, I think. Could be pretty nice. But they are expensive, for sure, because you can bring them back, right? So, that's why they're expensive, but the damage is pretty good. Slightly worse than it was before, but they're cheaper in a way, so actually they're cheaper. What, it was 2 for 130 at the end there, so I guess it's slightly cheaper, but they're also less tanky and they don't come back with the Master Moulder thingy. Yeah, maybe they're worse actually. Maybe they're like B, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, the Master Moulder. So you can heal a Moulder unit D3 3 health at the end of any turn, which is great. Quite good for keeping himself alive as well. And in your charge phase, you can pick another Moulder and give them +2 to charge. It's 100 points. I think it's a really solid war scroll for 100 points. I think it's like an A tier war scroll. I really like this unit. Quite good to give him the +1 to run and charge command trait to give stuff +3 to charge. So you can come out the Gnawholes, or you can come out with just the Grinder Fist with the Stormfiends and then get +3 to charge. Pretty nice, right? Yeah, I think a pretty solid unit. Okay, Help It Abomination. So this thing would be good, but it's like horrifically overpriced. It's 270 points. And it's got quite good damage in combat. So 13 attacks, 4s and 2s, rend 2, damage 2, with anti-infantry +1 rend. If its battle damage goes down to 8 attacks, which is quite a big hurt, to be honest. You can pick an enemy infantry unit in combat, and on a 3-up they take, basically you do like a 5-up ward clear, which is pretty nice. You heal D6 at the end of every turn, so if you have the Master Moulder, you can heal D6 +3 at the end of every turn, but it's only a 5-up save. So it can very easily get one hit. Now, if it does get one hit on a 5 to 6, it will live and then heal D6, and then it heal D6 plus 3, so it could be really annoying to keep alive. But for 270 points, it's just too expensive. If it was like the same points, like 180, 200, it'd be great. But for this many points, I think it's quite bad. So we're gonna put it down there. Okay, Deathmaster. We have some shooting attacks and some melee attacks that are pretty nice. They crit. And this unit is, I believe, 160 points. You can run, shoot, or charge with Eshin units. Can be quite good with the Deceiver, right, to get in combat. And he's only hit on a 5-up. So quite difficult to kill. And this unit's actually pretty good, I think, for the points cost. It's just that the Eshin units are pretty bad. So you probably... I mean, if we're just going to evaluate him on his own, I'd probably put him in A tier. Just on the war scroll, right? And we're going to do that, because maybe some Eshin units come out at some point. So this is a really good war scroll, but in terms of what it does for the army, it's not that great, just because the Eshin, like, battle line unit is bad, which we'll see in a second. The Clawlord on gnaw-beast, so this is one of the new models. Unfortunately, it can be shot, right? Because it's a cavalry unit. So that's the major negative of this unit. But you can give +5 to a non-vermin infantry unit, a non-hero vermin infantry unit in terms of control score, which can be quite good with Clanrats on the grind, and is otherwise pretty decent in combat. Would you take it? I'm not sure. I mean, part of the utility of taking it is in terms of getting Clanrats in the list, but reading through this, I'm sort of thinking the Bell or the warpseer are best for this. So I'm going to use this quick head taker thing, but probably I'd put it down in like B tier down here. Is it even B tier? I don't know. I don't think so. I'd probably put it down here. I think it kind of sucks because it can be shot, right? Yeah. Okay, Gracier on Screaming Bell. So 2 caster, 5-up ward. Friendly SKAVEN units have a 6-up ward while the Holy Wind is 6. Now, Holy Wind is 6 is hard, but that's still nice. Your hero phase, you roll a dice and are applied of corresponding effects. So 2 to 4, you just give enemy units -1 to hit in combat, which is fucking exceptional, by the way. Like, that's great. Apocalyptic Doom, you roll a d3 for each enemy unit within 13 and do 2+. I mean, that's fine, but I think you'd rather get the Wall of Unholy Sound. And then your hero phase, you pick an invisible enemy unit that doesn't have fly, and then roll a casting roll of 2d6, and then you do that damage difference between their move and the casting roll. And in combat, the Bell's pretty nice, so it's definitely better than it was. So 3 attacks, 4s and 4s, ren 1 damage D3, and then 5 attacks, 4s and 3s, ren 1 damage 2, and then 6 attacks, 4s and 2s, ren 1 damage 2. So combat pretty nice, 350 points though, so it is expensive, but I think a pretty nice war scroll overall. I'd probably put it in A tier. The -1 to hit being easier to get now is massive. That's what you wanted every time pretty much, so as a defensive buff piece, it's super nice, I think. Do I prefer the warpseer over this? I don't know. I like them both. This can move on your opponent's turn, which is nice. I'll think about it. They're both really good, so I'll have to think about which one is better for getting all those Clanrats in, but yeah, they both seem pretty nice. Okay, the Rattling Warp Blaster, so one of the new models. We have one of them is 190 points, which is a lot, right? 20-inch range, 3d6 plus 3 attacks, but you can boost that to 63 plus 3. 4s and 3s, ren 1 damage 1 with crit auto wound. So, on average, you're going to get, what? 21 shots plus 3, so 24 shots. 4s and 3s, ren 1 damage 1 with crit auto wound. That doesn't seem that good to me, to be honest. So, on average versus, let's say you're versing an infantry unit that has 10 or more models, you'd get, how many are we talking about here? So, we'd get 10 wounds plus 3.5, 5, So like 8.5 wounds, and then the 4 up save, or 5 up save, or whatever, get like 4 or 5 wounds through. But that's with overcharging it, right? I'm not seeing it at all. I don't really see it. I think it's bad. I think it's bad. Sorry. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some synergy I'm not seeing. But I think in terms of the damage, there's better units. It's quite low in terms of the damage overall. It doesn't come back either like the jails. So okay, the Night Runners are interesting. So it's 10 for 130 though, which is expensive. And then their shooting sucks, like it's just terrible. And then the melee is interesting, so it's 2 attacks, 4s and 5s, no rend 1 damage, but crit mortal. And while each model in this unit is within 1 of any terrain features, this unit cannot be targeted by shooting attacks, unless the attacking model is within 9. So quite good for, I think what this unit is for moving onto the side, standing and defending a Gnawhole, and not being able to be shot. My problem is it's 10 wounds on a 6 up save. But maybe it's fine for them to die and just come back from a Gnawhole. I just don't. I don't see it. The damage is so bad. The durability is so bad. I don't know what they do, to be honest. Yeah. I think we just go C. Somewhere down there. Okay, and I believe that brings us to the end. So I think the sort of list you're going to see, looking at the tier list, just to round it off here, you're going to see a lot of lists that are either shooting oriented or horde oriented. I'm personally probably going to run a horde oriented list. I really like the warpseer and the bell. I think they both have massive potential. The corruptor does as well. There's a bunch of like the plague monks and the Stormfiends and the Clanrats I think can all be really solid. There's a few shooting units in here that are great. I think the Gnawholes, warp lightning cannon, the globadiers, and the warlock engineer are all super solid. And there's a few heroes in here that are nice. But overall, I'm not like that satisfied with the book. I kind of feel like some of the heroes are just like, especially some of the Verminlords are just a bit weird. I think a lot of them have been balanced around the whole retreat thing. Like this is this command trait is maybe problematic in its design, right? Because it just means it's very hard to guarantee you can kill a Verminlord, right? Now you can surround them, and that way it makes them difficult to retreat. But then, you know, even with the deceiver, right? There's that opportunity for him to just get out anyway. So, and then some of the other ones have opportunity to do damage at the start of the combat phase. So maybe you can like hit stuff and then kill enough to get out of combat. I still really like the corruptor. I think that's super solid. You might see me running like a corruptor and a warpseer. That sounds really fun. With a bunch of I guess, what would the word be, like infantry units? Like a bunch of Clanrats or a bunch of plague monks. Might be interesting to run, right? Yeah, so I'm looking forward to trying all that stuff out, and I'll let you know how I proceed with SKAVEN. If you want to see more faction reviews, I'm doing plenty of these over and onwards, so please check those out. And until next time, I will see you then. Bye for now.